You're listening to the Midlife Ripening Podcast. I'm your host and your trusted midlife midwife, Brooke. This is a space for real talk, soul talk, about living a life that's fully, finally yours. We're here for the second bite, the luscious, conscious one, the one you take not because you're supposed to or expected to, but because something inside you says, this is mine to savor. You've built the life, the career, held the family, the calendar, the entire ecosystem of care. And yet something deeper is stirring, a want, a whisper, a truth you're ready to name. Here we'll explore creativity, rest, desire, play, rooted confidence, and the holy audacity of being yourself. If you've outgrown the life that once made sense and you're listening for what's next, come closer. Midlife isn't a crisis, it's a coming home. Let's slow down, feel our way in, and begin again. Hi, love. Welcome back. Today we're talking about anxiety, not just the sharp concern that shows up when things go off the rails, but the everyday tension that gets braided into how you love, how you lead, how you disappear from yourself, sometimes without even noticing. And I'm bringing it to the podcast because I've been hearing anxiety everywhere, not just in coaching sessions, but in late night text threads with my friends and in my own posts. And here are some examples of what it sounds like. I know I've put in the work, so why do I feel like I'm at the starting line? What used to save my ass is wrecking me now. I am so done spinning out every time I need to make a decision. I want my kids to actually see me rest, not just collapse. I feel like my gut is telling me to stop and walk away, but I can't be sure. So if any of that sounds familiar, please know that you're not alone. You're just in motion. Anxiety has its own choreography, and many of us have been dancing in certain ways for years, if not decades. Today, I'm going to share 5 common patterns of anxiety and take a peek with you at what might be hanging out underneath. And we'll also talk about how to shift the dance with less shame and without pretending it's easy. So before we get into naming these patterns, I want to start at the root and say that anxiety doesn't just live in your body. It echoes in how you show up with others. It's relational. It can cling to things that you've outgrown, old identities, old rules. And it gets baked into the pressure you may feel to hold everything together while keeping a smile. What I'm talking about is actually deeper than stress. It's the imprint of expectation, not just external expectations, but also the very high standards you hold for yourself. It's also the imprint of caregiving or overextending yourself, of earning your worth by being indispensable. And I'd love to invite you here to just hold anxiety beyond a clinical definition, which of course is important. But for this conversation, I love to invite you to see it as sort of like this swirl and tangle of lots of different emotions happening at the same time to the point where it's kind of hard to tell what's what. Okay, so why now? Why look at your relationship to anxiety in midlife? I'm going to give you a few reasons to consider, but first I want to share vulnerably with you about my own experience. I used to think that if I set down my anxiety, I would lose my edge, that I would lose my hold on excellence. And when I tell you that, I can feel the ways that anxiety kind of became tangled up or muddied with my self-concept for a long time. I was afraid that if I set down that edge, I would be giving up. And there was a real sense that I might not be able to find my way back into productivity when I needed to. Your reason might be different. It might be because the strategies that carried you through aren't holding you up anymore. In fact, they're wearing you down. Or maybe because you know in your heart of hearts that you've earned peace, but it still feels out of reach. When the dust settles, your body braces and tenses. When there's stillness, you feel suspicious, like the other shoe's gonna drop. Someone's going to need you as soon as you sit down. So why not keep going? When things feel easy, it feels like there are strings attached. Like if you relax now, you're going to pay for it later. Or maybe because modeling a new way matters to us as a collective. Whether you're a parent or a leader, someone is watching how you move through your days and they're learning from you. Is it safe to slow down? Am I allowed to unravel and be held sometimes? And maybe the most important reason of all, what you've been calling anxiety might actually be knowing or grief or instinct. And I want all of us to be able to learn the difference. So, this conversation isn't about erasing or eradicating anxiety from our lives. We need all of our impulses, but it is about recognizing what's alive for you and what's habitual, what's old pattern and what's inner clarity, what's a functioning smoke alarm and what's an overreactive smoke alarm that's going off every time we burn the bagel. And my hunch is that that edge you keep brushing up against, that growing resistance to keep pushing through one more email, one more meeting, then you'll take a break, then you'll set it down. That might just be your inner world saying, let's stop doing it this way. Okay, I want to pause here for a moment out of reverence and talk about what might keep you from receiving this episode fully into your heart. You may be thinking, I'm not anxious. I've never had a panic attack. I'm the one who gets things done. I hold everything together, the logistics, the emotions, the long view. Okay, but that doesn't mean that maybe sometimes you don't get caught in the spin or that your breath doesn't go shallow by 3 o'clock in the afternoon or that you don't sometimes lie awake at night replaying the conversation or that you're not scrolling, searching, trying to locate the missing piece, the thing you imagine everyone else knows that you don't. And if you knew it, life would be so much simpler. And maybe you'd have a chance of keeping up like she does. Here's another piece that might stop you from taking this in. Maybe you feel like you've already done this work. You've read about anxiety, you've sat with your therapist, you've even got the meditation app on your phone. If that's you, I just invite you to listen to the layers beneath the layers. Personal growth is an organic process. It's cyclical. And here's another example of what might keep you from fully receiving this conversation. Maybe you're not sure you have the time or the capacity to take an honest look at your relationship with anxiety. Not now, not today, maybe later. If you're feeling any of this, I see you. I see all of it. And if you're listening, I'm guessing there's a part of you that's ready, not to fix anything, not to blow anything up, but just to be a little bit more honest with yourself about the weight you've carried, about the peace you've been holding at arm's length, about the pleasure you know is possible, but you hold yourself back from. So if any of that lands, stay with me. You're in the right place. Stay for the part of you that's whispering, please don't look away this time. Okay, let's name these 5 dances because anxiety isn't just a feeling, it's a pattern. Again, it's relational, a set of learned movements, a muscle memory practiced and rehearsed until kind of just starts to feel like our personality or the way it has to be. When it comes to fear and anxiety, one of my favorite people to study with and learn from is Dr. Harriet Lerner. She helped me to see that anxiety doesn't just live inside of us. It lives in the rooms we grew up in the systems we've learned to bend around, in the way we were taught to be good, in the offices we commute to each morning. And what I'm sharing here is deeply informed by her body of work, so I'll be sure to link it in the show notes for you. So let's be clear. None of these dances are flaws. They are strategies, coping mechanisms born from context, looped until they became like a second nature. The first dance I want to talk about is overfunctioning. You jump in, you handle it, you fill the gap before anyone knows it's there. You don't wait to be asked, you're already 3 steps ahead. Sometimes it looks like leadership. Sometimes it feels like martyrdom. You worry that if you don't do it, everything will fall apart. And then we've got underfunctioning. You freeze. Decisions feel like quicksand. You lose your words, your appetite, your edges, your sense of self. Sometimes it looks like flakiness. Sometimes it feels like collapse. You wait for someone to lead even as your own voice is clearing its throat. And then we've got blaming. You focus on what they did. You replay the scene. You gather evidence. You retell the story. Sometimes it looks like clarity. Sometimes it feels like control. You're narrating over the whispers of your own agency and power. And then there's distancing. You get vague. You go quiet. You disappear into the logistics. You slide into the digital fog, the emails, the scrolls. Sometimes you need space. And sometimes you hide in plain sight, avoiding the conversation that might crack something open. And lastly, gossiping. You talk around it, not to the person, but to your people. You process sideways. You vent and you loop and you build your case. And sometimes it looks like connection, and sometimes it feels like righteousness. You would be mortified if they heard exactly what you think and say. Okay, so you've just heard 5 common dances of anxiety, and maybe you feel seen or squirmy or tender or a little bit of it all. Please remember, these dances helped you to survive. They made sense at the time. And now, here in the wild, holy becoming of midlife, you get to ask, do you want to continue dancing this way in the second half of your life? Okay, let's get into rewriting the choreography. If you want to take the awareness that's coming forward as you're listening a little bit deeper, I've got an invitation for you. For each of the dances I just described, I've got a prompt, a place for you to start. And I would encourage you to begin with just one. Choose the one that as soon as you heard me say it, you saw yourself inside of it and thought, oh yeah, that's me. Okay. If you tend to overfunction, what happens when you don't rush in to fix or help right away? If you tend to underfunction, what's one small commitment you could make today? If you tend to blame, what might be underneath the frustration? What might be trying to get your attention? Are you feeling rejected, unseen, unappreciated? Get curious. If you tend to distance, how could you create a softer landing place for your stress? Instead of pushing it away, how could you just start to gently welcome it? And if you tend to gossip, what would it feel like to either speak clearly and directly or pause and listen inward instead? This is how the choreography changes, one moment of choice at a time. So start small. As we close, I want to remind you, nothing that we've talked about today is a problem that you need to solve. These are patterns in motion, and even starting to recognize the choreography is sacred work. Aim here isn't perfection, it's presence, it's spaciousness, it's choosing your next move with your feet on the ground. Remember, we are not trying to eradicate our safety instincts. Okay, we're just getting curious about what it might look like to rewrite the dance with mercy, with practice, and with each other. For this episode C to carry with you, I want to offer you a blessing from my heart. May you meet your anxiety with more love and listen long enough to hear what it's been trying to tell you. May you thank the parts of you that learned to give until you were empty or vanish. May you notice the old choreography as it stirs up, that urge to fix or flee or spin. And may you pause just long enough for something different to emerge. I'm so glad we had this time together today. Until next time, keep listening to yourself and keep dancing towards something more alive. Thank you for spending this time with me. and for making space to ripen in your own way, in your own time. If something landed with you today, trust that it matters. And if you'd like to take what you've heard here even deeper, I offer individual coaching and small group programs for midlife women reclaiming their rhythms and desires. You can learn more at brookehofstadtcoaching.com or join my email series, The Second Bite. And if this episode spoke to you, I would be so grateful if you'd leave a glowing review or share it with someone ripening alongside you. Until next time, tend your heart and take the second bite.